What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Sector for Nerds. I'm Ryan Brower, and today we're going to talk about that Mandalorian tease in the Book of Boba Fett Chapter 4, along with the rest of the episode, known as The Gathering Storm. But before we do that, you guys, make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If this is your first time watching, I like to do a lot of reaction videos to fan-made Star Wars content, whether that's fan films or tribute videos, and I also like to do a lot of discussions on the latest episodes that appear on Disney Plus from both Star Wars and Marvel, such as what we're doing here today. We've been doing it since the start of Disney Plus being in existence, and we will continue to do so as more shows are released. We found out yesterday that we're getting Moon Knight on March 30th. Very excited about that, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So please subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, it doesn't cost you anything, and it really helps to support my channel. Alright guys, I want to talk about our main discussion point first today because I really want to talk about it. So towards the end of this episode, and this episode was mostly flashback. I would say a good majority of this episode, the episode was like I think 48 minutes. I'm pretty sure the majority of that episode was flashback. I would say like 10 to 15 minutes were reserved for what was going on in the modern time. So, and we'll get to the flashback stuff in a moment, you guys, but first up, so when they're in the modern time, Boba's chatting with the crime bosses that used to work for Jabba, and, you know, he's talking about how, why speak of conflict when corporations can make us all rich, you know, like he says in the trailer. They all say, like, okay, we're not going to join you, and Boba's like, okay, well, can you at least not join the Pykes? And they're like, yeah, we won't join the Pykes. Whether or not I believe that, I don't know. I don't know if these guys can be trusted, but at the end of the day, they end up walking away. We see Boba and Fennec, you know, sitting at the top of Jabba's palace. They're just chatting. She's like, how much treasure do we got left? And Boba's like, oh, I got plenty of credits. What we need is muscle. And Fennec says, and I quote, credits can buy muscle if you know where to look. And then all of a sudden I hear, da, 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 da. And I'm thinking, wait, why are they playing the Mando's theme right here? Oh my gosh, they're gonna hire Mando. That's right, people. I mean, why else would you play the Mandalorian's theme at the end right there? And by the way, I love that theme as well. Easily one of my favorite Star Wars themes of all time. Quickly, that theme became one of my favorite Star Wars themes of all time. I love it. So guys, let's just picture this right now, okay? Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, Black Krrsantan, and the Mandalorian all teaming up. It feels like someone took a mod of Star Wars Battlefront 2. Someone made a mod of the EA Star Wars Battlefront 2 Heroes versus Villains and said, okay, we're gonna insert these four as one of our Heroes versus Villains team. Like, let's fucking go. There are a lot of questions, though, as far as what the Mandalorian's gonna be doing, right? Because the last we saw of him, he was saying goodbye to Grogu. But we also have to remember, he doesn't have a ship anymore. So one would assume that he'd be tagging along with Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians, especially now that he also has the Darksaber, right? So that's something that one would assume they'd have to sort out. But if they're going to look to hire Mando, I wonder if maybe it's a situation where Mando's like, okay, you guys have to let me go and do this. I'm still a bounty hunter. Let me go and make this money. And then maybe like he promises to give the money to Bo-Katan, or like they can use it to buy things that will help them restore Mandalore or something like that. I think that'd be pretty cool, because I don't think I can see just like Din Djarin being like, okay, let's just send all the Mandalorians to Tatooine. I don't see that happening. I think it's just going to end up being him. And it's gonna be very cool, you guys, to see the Mandalorian back in action again, because it's been a while since we've seen him. And if reports are true about Mandalorian Season 3 being delayed, then being able to see him here in the Book of Boba Fett would be sort of like a nice option B to sort of give us more Mandalorian while we wait for the show itself. I dare anyone to go up against the team of Boba Fett, Fennec Shand, Black Krrsantan, and the Mandalorian. That is just a formidable force if I've ever heard of one. I mean, maybe if the Pykes started assembling bounty hunters to go after them, like, I don't know, Bosk or Forloom or IG-88, like, maybe they'd stand some chance. Dengar as well, can't forget about Dengar. If they started maybe assembling some of those guys, like, that'd be a sick fight, but at the end of the day, like, I don't know, that four-person team right there, oh, it's so good. But in hindsight, though, the rest of this episode was okay. I think that this episode kind of did the same thing that the last episode did, and that was like sort of continuing to establish the story, but like not much is really going on, if that makes sense. It's almost like they're sort of setting up all these pieces for like this big action scene with the Pykes and this big war with the Pykes. But I almost feel like we're kind of in like we're kind of just like holding our position for a bit until we get to that point. Because Boba also says at the end of this episode, we have to prepare for war, which is exactly what he said at the end of episode 3. Now listen, I'm not opposed to them setting up the story, okay? At the end of the day though, when there's only 7 episodes and it kind of feels like that, you know, your 2 middle episodes, you're sort of stalling in a way. I feel it's like, okay, we only have so many episodes of this show. Like, let's get to the point. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's get to the stuff that everybody came to see. This episode did what the last episode did. It got me excited for the future of the show. I'm excited to see this war with the Pykes, and I am especially excited to see the return of the Mandalorian. All right, so let's talk about the rest of this episode, you guys, which was very much a flashback story. And it was the story of how Boba found Fennec Shand. We start out with the Bacta tank, so it's like, all right, you know what that means. And then Boba finds Jabba's palace, and it's like, okay, where are we going with this? And then he finds Fennec, and I'm like, oh shit. Fennec ends up getting mods from a mod parlor. This felt very weird to me. I don't know. Like, it's kind of weird because I know that a lot of people were upset with the biker gang from last week, the kids or whatever with the speeders that look kind of funny. I don't know. I know people were saying it looked out of place, and I guess it just depends on who you ask. I mean, it maybe it looks a little weird, but I don't like, I'm not fully against it. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily have defined thoughts on it like everybody else seems to. But I will say though, this mod parlor thing for me, it's kind of funny, right? Like this mod parlor thing of all things kind of made me go, huh? So like, because Fennec was dead, but like they modded her so she's not dead. I don't know. But you know what, whatever, like Fennec is back. It at least explained how she's back. So you know what, at least we have that. And that was something that I was very much asking for in this show. Another thing I was asking for in this show was to get more from Fennec Shand. I want to see more of her in this show. I want to see her stand out a bit more. And this episode gave us that. So in that regard, I can't complain either. They're going to come up with a plan to get Boba's ship from Jabba's palace. And Boba says goodbye to his bantha and tells Fennec that he was ready to leave hunting behind to pretty much be with the Tuskens, which I'm like, damn, man, that's deep. Like, this hunting group, this Tusken group really did change Boba. And Fennec even alludes to it too. She's like, these guys have made you soft. And it's like, no, it's made me focused. It's made me stronger. One of the droids in the kitchen, I would presume it was the kitchen because seemed like he was cutting up food and stuff, took his arms. He had like 6 arms and he started swinging the knives in his hand as if he was General Grievous swinging his 4 lightsabers. I'm like, okay now. They end up finding Slave 1, but they also get into a fight with 2 Gamorreans. Were those supposed to be the same 2 Gamorreans that helped Boba later on? I would assume so, otherwise why would they just show 2 Gamorreans? Fennec ends up choosing to stick around after they get Slave 1, so it's like, okay, so I guess maybe she just feels like, Boba helped her out of a tough spot, so maybe she's just willing to stick around. And then Boba ends up kicking butt with Slave 1. He goes after that biker gang and just annihilates them. He goes after the Sarlacc, which I was still alive. It was gonna pull the ship under, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this Sarlacc is really strong. And then Fennec, coming in clutch, presses the button, unleashes a seismic charge in the frickin' Sarlacc's mouth. Brrr, let's go. And then Boba, her and Boba are having a conversation, right? And Boba's like, I want you to join me. Like, I'm going to give you something that no other boss will give you, and that's loyalty. And it doesn't just include like, oh, I'm not going to betray you, but like everything that I earn as like a crime boss, I'm going to share with you, which is very promising. And Boba says you can only get so far without a tribe, which I think is like kind of ties into later on, right? With like him hiring more muscle, like you need a tribe of people to surround yourself with. Hence why that's why he went to go find Black Krrsantan. That's probably why they're going to go hire Mandalorian. You know what I'm saying? Like they need to surround themselves with a tribe of people that can act as a cohesive unit. Now, I think we've gotten to a point where there's not going to be any more flashback scenes, because the way that this ended, it was like, all right, he gets out of the bacta tank, and then I think it was Fennec that was saying, congratulations, you're fully healed, or something like that. So I feel like that is supposed to maybe just be a sign like, okay, we've now gotten to a point where we've caught up with everything that's gone on with Boba. You know, we've seen him, what happens after he escapes the Sarlacc. We see how he finds Fennec Shand. The only thing now that's really left to do, right, is to just go off to Tatooine and find the Mandalorian. And that's, you know, where we know the rest of Boba's story from there. Then we get the scene at the bar with Black Krrsantan. Not only did we see Black Krrsantan in there, Max Rebo once again making a cameo in this episode. This man, I think, has cameoed in almost every episode. Then I also saw a droid in there that very much resembled, it was a smaller version of it, but it very much resembled the droid that we see in the Galaxy's Edge bar playing the tunes there. And it's also, I think, the same droid in Star Wars Rebels as well, that pilots a certain type of shuttle. Wookiees and Trandoshans definitely hate each other, hence why Black Krrsantan went after him, and he ends up tearing off one of their arms. I'm like, okay, let's go. And then from there, you guys, we talked about that final scene with the crime bosses and Boba needing more muscle. And we talked about all that, so that pretty much gets us through this entire episode. You guys gotta let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this one. I think this one was definitely better than episode 3, but I still think that episodes 1 and 2 were still better. But I do think, though, you guys, that we're setting up for some crazy episodes going forward, and they better be crazy, because we only got, I think, 3 episodes of this show left. So we really need for Boba and the gang to start making an impact here. We still don't know what the Pykes' motives are for Tatooine, because we didn't see them in this episode. I don't even think we saw the biker gang in this episode either that Boba hired last time. I don't even think we saw them. But I am still excited for this show and seeing where it goes next. So that's going to wrap us up here for today, you guys. Like I said, let me know in the comments what you guys thought of this episode. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share this video around as it really helps support the channel, and I will see you guys next time. This is the way.
This is the way.